Hello and welcome to another episode of Unearth Horticulture. I'm Renata with Renata's Garden, and we are currently in my sunroom, and we are going to take a look at some of my houseplants around here, some of my houseplants in my collection. We're going to look at some successes, some struggles, and hopefully you glean some information out of this that can help you with your growing journey. And if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the comments below. I will be watching those, monitoring those, and doing my best to answer all of your most challenging questions. So let's take a look. The first plant I have here to show you is the lifesaver plant, and it's a pretty common plant. You can find it around, and over the last year that I've had it, it has trailed out of its container. It started in a 4-inch container, and I put it in this nice shallow bowl because it is very succulent, and I knew that it would probably have shallow roots and a fine texture to the roots, which makes them more susceptible to root rot. So I went with a shallow dish for the pot, and I knew it would crawl and look nicely in this. Okay. My success story is the bloom. So a lot of plants are triggered by long days, and we just underwent summer solstice. A lot of succulents and cacti start to initiate flowers when we have long days outside. So as you can see, I have a little lifesaver flower, and that is where the plant gets its common name. It looks very unreal and unusual, which usually those plants are the best, right? Those are the ones that you like to collect. Yay, successes. All right, next we're gonna take a look at this Philodendron orchid that I have here. If you take a closer look, you can see that the flower spike, which the flower spike in orchid terms is the entire stalk plus all of the flowers. That is the entire inflorescence, the spike of the orchid. It has some dieback here. You can see I've got some wilting, and that's always sad to see because orchids are so beautiful. You want their blooms to last forever, but because they're living, they can't. So since that is dying back, but I still have some partial blooms here staying pretty happy. You know, eventually they're gonna go the same way as the rest of the spike, but I'm gonna go ahead and give this plant a trim, give the flower spike a trim. You know, this is a completely natural process. If you see flowers wilting on your orchids, that doesn't mean they're dying. It just means that they're headed on to the next stage of their life cycle, which is vegetative. This is about the time of year, if you've kept your orchids longer than a year, you'll notice they fall into a cycle where they kind of go vegetative later in the summer, but then they put blooms on in the winter, and that's because they're triggered by slightly cooler temperatures to initiate flowers. If you have questions about your orchid care, I'm a little bit of an expert. I worked for an orchid growing company for a couple of years, and I have a head full of knowledge about Philodendron orchid blooming. So definitely hit me up with those questions. I'm going to give this flower spike a trim. The next plant we are going to talk about is my Philodendron Mike. And Mike is a very popular plant right now because, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of in a dark container, so you might not be able to see it well, but I'll give you a close-up. It has this bronze-colored leaf, and they look and feel very velvety, which gives them kind of a luxurious appearance, very antique-looking, and that's definitely why I love it. I just recently planted this in its hanging container about a month ago, and when I repotted, I gave it a boost of slow-release fertilizer to help it flush new growth, and you can see that it's working. New growth is coming on. What I have noticed with Mike, particularly Philodendron Mike, is that it actually likes its soil on the dry side. If you keep it too wet, its leaves kind of curl up lengthwise like hot dog buns, you know, and it kind of just curls up on itself. And you might think, oh, that's dry, it needs more water because it's curling its leaves. Actually, its leaf curl is caused by the soil staying too moist. So this one might like it a little bit more dry than most philodendron hybrids and varieties. So just tuck that away in your head. The next plant I have to show you is my Bonnie spider plant. This is a Chlorophytum camosum, is its Latin name, and I have her in a head planter because, of course, look at this definite like hairstyle type plant. It's got a few crusty leaves in there. I'm not very good about keeping these guys watered well. This type of plant, spider plants, actually really can soak up that water quickly. In their roots, they have really bulbous sections to their roots that store water, and so they really slurp up that water. Actually, this guy, I noticed, I should say guy or girl, I keep switching genders on this plant, but this plant in particular has some shrooms growing in the soil, and I wanted to take a brief second to talk to you about fungus and plants. You know, fungus is a scary word for most people when they're thinking about taking care of plants, because they think that they're always the antagonist. They're always out to get your plant's root system, when in actuality, most fungi are friendly fungi, and they're working to break down the potting mix that your plant is growing in. They're not actually harming your plant. Sometimes fungi are just a sign that you're keeping the soil a little too moist, or you need to repot because the soil is getting old and that fungus is starting to break down that organic matter. And by organic matter, I mean the potting mix. The potting mix is not, it comes from living biotic materials that makes it organic. I have lots of terms I'm throwing your way in this video, but there's no other really good way to explain it. So let me know if something needs to be clarified. Anyways, so the fungi in here aren't necessarily a bad thing. You might want to just, pick those out with your hands and keep them from spreading spores and continuing to spread in your pots. But the best way to get rid of fungi in your pot is to simply repot or to water less frequently. So, fungi. They're actually really fun guys. And I made that joke. That really cheesy joke that I probably heard a million professors make in college. Okay, so this is my Anthurium. I have had this plant for 2 years now, and it has been through lots of different stress. It was actually a plant that I used for my old job for work. It was for our company. Long story, I was a plant care specialist for a company, and I tested different home remedies and trials and care things in my house, and I had this as a test plant. Anyways, it is quite large now, as you can see. Anthuriums, otherwise known as flamingo plants, are in the Philodendron family. They're cousins, and they're epiphytic, so it's really important to let their roots go through proper dry down cycles. But they also grow upward and upward and upward, and you can see that. So my plant is getting pretty tall, and as they do age, they start to throw some roots, some epiphytic roots above their soil line. Not a big deal. They do just get a little crusty as they age, and that is okay. That's okay. Plants, just like people and animals and anything that is living, do get a little crusty as they age. And don't be afraid of that. That just shows that you're really good at keeping plants alive. So be proud of that. If you have any questions about your Anthuriums that you've had, a lot of people like to keep them neat and tidy. I have actually tried peeling some of the lower leaves off and planting the plant deeper. It does work, but it only works for so long, because how deep can you get your pots? So if you want a nice, neat, compact plant, just keep getting new ones, about every 5 years. They last and stay pretty nice for a while. This is 2 years. I'm sure I'll probably keep this plant until I die. No, I will definitely kill it by then. But probably from moving it too many times, because I move around a lot. But really cool plant. Anthuriums, they have one of the longest lasting flowers. These flowers can last for 2 to 3 months at a time, or even longer. And they're really becoming quite popular. So. All right, that's the end to this first part of a 2-part Unearth Horticulture episode on my houseplants and what's going on with them. I hope you found it informative and helpful in your plant care endeavors. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. I love feedback, and I will be keeping an eye out for that over the next week. So until part 2 comes out, I'm Renata with Renata's Garden, and you've been watching Unearth Horticulture.